Hello everyone, welcome to another YouTube video. Oh god, I'm on the wrong page. Oh god. You can see the Wizard101 subreddit. That's embarrassing. Hopefully there's nothing bad on the subreddit. Anyways, I like making tier list videos. You guys like watching tier list videos. So you know what? I've figured out a new kind of series type thing to do, series type beat of ranking the spells, because I have played every school. If you did not know, I've done that. I have a lot of level 100s. The only level 100s I don't have are Life and Myth. But otherwise, I have a 100 of literally every other school. So, I think I'm pretty, able to form an opinion on these things. So, today we're going to be starting with the FIIRE spell tier list. Again, this is on Tier List Maker. I don't know if it has all the spells. If it has one it's missing, just let me know in the comments, and I will respond to your comment with what I think of that spell, what tier it would go in. And again, I am sorry if I do miss anything, because, I don't make these tier lists, because I'm way too lazy to make these tier lists. But anyways, let's get started. The first spell is Backdraft, which is the FIIRE equivalent of Supercharge, which is a Storm Blade. X amount of percent per pip. 15% per pip for a trap is not that bad at all, because if you do a full 14 pips, that's like 210%, which is actually really, really good. So if you want to hit 1 in a million, or you just want to do a lot of damage, Backdraft is definitely the way to go. It's for FIIRE anyways. It's actually extremely useful. Personally, I'd probably put it as an S tier spell. It is definitely an extremely good spell, especially for FIIRE, and it's one of the best they have in their arsenal. Brimstone Revenant, for me, when compared to other FIIRE spells, is less... Let me turn up the Safari music a bit, because it's pretty quiet. There we go. Brimstone Revenant is kind of meh. It's good damage for 4 pips, and gives a plus trap, so it's not that bad. It could be good for setting up future spells. Realistically, I'd put it in a B tier. I wouldn't put it that much higher than that. It's not that good, but it's something. Burning Rampage for me is a solid F. As a FIIRE, I would never use Burning Rampage. It's just completely useless. The 70 and then 700 damage 2 rounds later, that's kind of just weird. I don't know. I've never seen it be used in a useful way, and I've never even seen anyone use this spell beyond a street enemy or like a mob enemy. So whatever, that's where I put that. Choke, for me, this is probably better in PvP. I can imagine it'd be really good in PvP, but in PvE, it's basically useless after a certain point, because almost every enemy has stun block post Celestia. So I would put that in a solid, probably B tier just for PvP. I can see how it'd be useful. I personally wouldn't use it that much later on. What's this called? It's not Incendiary, is it? What is it? It's something that has to do with really powerful fire force. I don't know, but basically, it's the upgraded version of Wildfire. It has plus 20% Fire Pierce, which is useful, and 17% crit, which nowadays isn't as useful, but was useful. For me, it's a solid C tier. I would definitely, like, the Pierces can be really good, but it does cost 4 pips, which is a significant downside. Detonate, destroy 1 overtime, and deal 100% damage. This one is very useful, but it is not the equivalent of Mass Detonate, which comes with the Dahlia Falmea hat, so it's a B tier. If Mass Detonate was an actual card, it would probably be S tier because of how useful it can be. I'm sure you guys have seen, maybe you've seen on your recommended, the Wizard101 guide, where it's the guy putting Scald and then 1-rounding them because of the Mass Feint, Scald, and then Detonate. Super amazing and well thought out strategy. If Mass Detonate was on here, again, it would be S tier, but otherwise B tier for 1 enemy is pretty decent in my opinion, pretty balanced. E-free, this actually has the old damage reduction on here. Probably would be S tier with the old damage reduction, but with the new one, it is a solid A tier still. The damage is really good. You're probably going to use it quite often, and overall, it is quite the good spell. Fire Blade, that has to go into S tier because it's, you know, one of the best things in a fire wizard's arsenal. You're going to keep that in your deck the entire game. Extremely useful. I don't really need to explain why. Fire Cat, for me, I'm going to rank these lower tier spells based on how long I would keep them in my deck for the game. So Fire Cat would probably be a C tier because it's iconic, yes, but realistically, Fire Cat you're only going to keep in your deck from Wizard City to mid Krokotopia, potentially even maybe a little bit later. But either way, I would say it's a good starter spell. It's better than most, but it's not, you don't keep it in your deck for that long, which is Fire Dragon for me is an S tier because Fire Dragon is something that is useful for a fire for a very long time. As a fire wizard, I still keep Fire Dragon in my deck at max level, or not max level, I'm at 130, but close enough. Basically, what I'm saying is that Fire Dragon as a fire, you will keep in your deck for a very, very long time. So, I would put it at an S tier. You're probably going to put it in your boss deck the second you get it, and it probably won't ever go. So, to me, that's the equivalent of an S tier. Summon Minion, I have to put F tier because I just have never used one of these spells. They're never useful in my opinion because you can't control them. If you could control what spells they used, sure, but you can't, so Fire Elf for me is like a B tier spell. You definitely keep it in your deck for longer than Fire Cat. Like I would keep this in my deck probably from Krokotopia to Mushu. Especially with enchants, it would be incredibly, you know, useful to keep it in for that long. And the overtime is really good too. So, Fire Elf, solid B tier. Fire from Above does a lot of damage. One of the most damaging fire spells in the game. 5 pips and a Shadow Pip. I would probably put this at S tier. Plus the fact that the fuel that's there is useful for any further hits if you need to. Fire Prism, I would put at B tier. It's kind of useful, but it's obviously not as useful as Mass Prism, which I'm just going to rank now as an A tier. The reason why they're not S tiers is specifically because a lot of times, especially late game, you don't need Fire Prism because you can just pierce through it, or, you know, there's other people to back you up there. So that's why they're not S tier. For me, as a fire, most of the time I was duoing you probably wouldn't solo fire, most likely. As a solo, they're probably closer to S, but as an average fire, prisms are not really as useful because they're only going to be in your deck for a set amount of time. Also, in my eyes, fire has actually been one of the more rare schools to go up against in all the worlds. That could just be me, but that's that. Fire Shield, probably more useful for, it's very situational and more useful in PvP potentially, but again, still not that useful. I would put it in like D tier, not very good. Actually, I'll put it in E tier because you probably would never use it. Fire Spear, I've never used this in my entire life, so I'm going to put that at D tier, but I can see how it could be useful. Fire Trap is going to be useful early game, but it's probably going to drop off late game. You're probably not going to use it that often once you get past a certain point. I almost never put it in my deck, actually. So, Fire Trap, solid B tier for me. Fuel is like Fire Trap, but 3 of them. I would also put it in B tier. It's just more like, you know. Galvanic Shield, I believe this is called Galvanic Shield. For me, I can understand how it would come in handy in PvP with the Storm and Ice Shield minus 70s. I'll put it in C tier because of that, but I don't see how it would be used very much out of that. Heckhound, and I keep saying before everything. I'm trying to get out of that habit. But Heckhound does 130 per pip over 3 rounds, so it's a ring round. Obviously, can be incredibly useful. It does a lot of damage. For example, the last boss in Imperia you need to use like Heckhound on or an overtime, because you need to do, I think it's 30,000 damage 3 times. So that's where it could come in handy. Also, you could use Detonate on it and do a ton of damage. So Heckhound, definitely an incredibly useful spell. I'd put it at A tier. I don't use it enough, but I feel like it is a very useful spell. Elephant is a solid spell, but my only problem with it is in 10 levels, you'll be probably switching it out for Ifrit anyway. So it's very temporary in your deck. I would put it at B tier, potentially C tier. You could definitely see that a lot of the list is skewed towards B tier, because I feel like that's what FIIRE kind of is a lot of B tier spells, but they do have really good spells, such as, you know, the ones up here. And some pretty bad ones down here, but less bad ones than good ones, actually, which is pretty good. Hephaestus, in my opinion, I would never use it. It's a D tier for me. 5 pips for the mediocre amount of damage, and then that just isn't worth it. You can see it's worse. It's actually worse than a Brimstone Revenant, and Brimstone Revenant costs 4 pips. So just overall, it's just a bad spell. Don't use it. Immolate actually does decent damage. 4 pips to take 250 to yourself, which is interesting, and deal 600. I've never found this to be super useful because of the damage on yourself, but I could see how you might use it. So C tier for me. Definitely does a lot of damage for a 4-pip spell. King Artorias. This one for me, I have to put at S tier. Now, the problem with this is I have always... Oh god, that is loud. Please stop. Cease at once. Okay, there we go. Fixed it a bit. Excuse me. For me, every King Artorias spell has a soft spot in my heart because I really love all of them. They're super nice and pleasant to look at. Spell animation is short and concise. And this music's still loud. I need to turn it down. You know what? Actually, just go to Avalon. Just go to Avalon. I wanna hear Avalon. This is getting a bit too hectic for me. There we go. Peace at last. So, King Artorias nowadays does more damage than Ifrit. You can see in this they don't, but it does do more damage now. Also, just generally, it costs the same amount of pips. The weakness, you're probably not going to need the weakness in a lot of cases when you use this, because you're probably going to kill the enemy anyway. For me, it's probably more an A tier spell, but I just can't place it there because I just love King Artorias so much. I use it in my FIIRE's deck all the time, so that's where I'd put it. Krampus, minus 45, again, good for PvP. I wouldn't use it too much, but I would probably put it at B tier along with Brimstone Revenant. It's something that I could see how it would be useful, but I would not use. Power Link, or sorry, is this Link or Power Link? This is Link. Link for me is a E tier spell. It's like barely any healing, barely any damage. You probably won't use it all that much. Pacify is an F tier because you just don't. I don't think that works. Did they fix it? I don't know. Even if they did fix it, I don't like the system. So I'm going to put it there. Meteor Strike is an obvious S tier spell. As a FIIRE, you're going to be using Meteor Strike all the time against mobs, even towards the end. Obviously, I've been using Meteor Strike from level 22 to level 130, and I will until level 140, probably for a lot longer. So, again, it's there. That's where I'd put it. Phoenix, for me, is Elephant, but kind of worse. I really like the design of it, but I would have to put it at D tier because realistically, you're only going to be using it. I mean, I guess you could use it, what, for 15 levels? I guess that's 15 levels is enough for me to bump it up to C tier as your strongest hit. But again, I probably wouldn't. Phoenix is just useless after that. So, Power Link, I'll put 1 tier above Link because obviously it does more damage. It heals you more, but I just don't find it to be useful. As a FIIRE, you probably won't be healing all that much, and damage over times for me have always been kind of meh. So, Quench, I believe that's what the FIIRE's one is called. Not my favorite. I would consider it to be a kind of a lot of boss cheats that you would use dispels on are for ice or for storm or for myth, not for fire. So it's less useful. I'm not going to put it way lower, but I will put it in a C tier. Not the most useful, but against fire bosses, it could be useful. Rage Bull for me is another S tier. It's Meteor Strike, but better, and I used it so much from Arcanum to, well, Polaris to now. I used it in my boss deck a lot. Nowadays, I probably wouldn't because I don't like the Shadow Pip system generally, but it is still a really good spell. Actually, you know what? I'm going to move it down to A tier. I've changed my mind. I'm sorry. It's a good spell, but it's not that good of a spell. It's not S tier worthy, in my opinion. Rain of Fire. I have never liked the spell. Some people told me that you use it on a certain boss. I forget what it was called. Was it Pulverizer? It wasn't Pulverizer. I have no idea what one. Let me look real quick. I need to look because I'm genuinely curious. Sorry, wait. Let me pause until I can find. Okay, it was for a boss called Renegade, which I just don't know what it is, and I'm just not gonna bother looking it up. It's probably a Catacombs boss, but I just don't really care. For me, Rain of Fire is meh at best. So I'm gonna put it at between D and E. What is it? Probably D tier. It's not the worst, not that good. Scald, if I didn't know about Mass Detonite strategy, probably would have been a D tier. But with Mass Detonite strategy, it is a solid A tier. Being able to do 20k damage to boss's first round is insane. That's enough to one-shot Morganth, enough to one-shot Hades. Most bosses in the game, you know, just generally. So, solid A tier for me. That's, that was, you know, yeah. Bartleby, I've never really liked the spell. I don't think I've ever actually even used it, which is hilarious. Personally, I would much rather use Fire from Above. 11 pips, by the time you reach 11 pips, you're going to have a Shadow Pip, most likely. So, I would personally just rather do Fire from Above than the tree. I don't know. I've never liked it all that much. I would put it at D tier. I've never found it to be useful. Scorching Scimitars, I actually used this spell as my main hitting spell throughout most of Polaris onwards, or like Mirage onwards, sorry, because you can't unlock it in Polaris. But it's a 4-pip with the Shadow Pip, spell that does 1092 at base, which is slightly, it's about on par with Fire from Above, but I just always kind of liked the spell and the look of it. I would also put it at A tier. The Divide function I've never used. It's just a solid hitting spell. So either A or B for me. The Summon Minion from Avalon, don't know what it's called, putting it right into F tier because I've never used it. Smokescreen, definitely a good spell in PvP. It's not something I use, but it's there, it exists. Probably B tier along with Choke, because it's like, I would never use it, but I could see how a lot of Fire Wizards would. Just not me, though. Steel Charm, that could come in handy, especially for some bosses in the future, if they have, you know, like a blade type cheat. I would put it at C. It's not as good as some spells, like it's not as good as, you know, actually, I'll put it at B tier because I'm pretty sure Storm can use Steel Charm on Chain Von Chain, right? So that's decent. That's decent, at least. Probably not for Fire Wizards, though. I don't know. I'm sure there's some case that it's useful. Sunbird. Sunbird's what it's called. Yeah, Sunbird is similar. It falls under a similar vein of Fire Cat, Fire Elf, Phoenix. You just don't use it that often, or you don't use it after a certain point. You probably use it at level 10 to level 22, and then Meteor Strike is there. In my opinion, with Monstrous, because I have quested with Monstrous on almost all of my wizards for a long time, Sunbird isn't even really that useful, because I end up using Fire Elf until level 20 anyway. Because with Monstrous, it just makes more damage sense to use that over Sunbird, which will overkill the enemy. So I would have to put Sunbird around C tier, potentially even D tier. For me, you just won't use it all that much. So Sun Serpent, I think someone complained to me about well, they didn't complain, but they said in the AoE video that they thought Sun Serpent was too low, and that's fair. I just generally think 10 pips for a fire spell isn't that efficient. You're going to be wanting to use King Artorias before it, most likely, because it does almost equal amounts of damage, and the AoE thing isn't even that useful on it, to be completely honest. You're going to be wanting to use, you know, Rage Bull over it, or even Fire Dragon obviously doesn't do nearly as much, but you can do it 2 rounds earlier, which is a lot in a battle. So for me, Sun Serpent would go probably into B tier. I personally almost never used Sun Serpent. Ever, really. So, Sacrifice Minion, that's like a solid E for me. You probably will never use it. But it's there if you want to use it. Pacify probably goes around with Major Pacify, which is an F tier for me. It's just not useful. And last on our list is Wildfire, which for me is a solid B tier because it's another blade. It's similar to a trap. If anything, it's a bit better than a trap, actually. You know what? I'm going to move a trap down 1. I'll leave fuel there. Why not? Why is it so excited? What is this from? Glorious theme. Fucked if I know. Anyways, that is a rather triumphant end to this video. This is my fire tier list. I've ranked everything here. Some other things I could potentially see people asking about: Dragoon gear, Dragoon amulet, Fire Dragon. That's really good. I'd probably put that in S tier with Meteor Strike. The new Caramel spell, never used it. Don't know. Sorry, I can't tell you yet. I think that's pretty much it, actually. If you have something else for me, let me know. Oh, Nautilus Unleashed from Celestial Spelemental. Probably B tier. Better than Phoenix, but not as good as Helephant. Almost equivalent to Helephant, actually. Could be useful with a Steel Charm. But that's it. If you enjoyed, please drop a like, hit the sub button. Expect an Ice one rather soon. The Ice one will be... okay. You know, I have mixed feelings with Ice. Ice Wizards know that I am not the best, you know, when it comes to trading them. But it's okay. It's okay. So, real quick before I end the video, I would like to say I kind of have the next week planned or so. My plan is to probably do some more tier lists like this. And then, if you know, I'm sure you've heard of it because my channel, if you've watched my videos, the Pirate 101 revival is happening on the 24th. What I'm thinking is this week will be Wizard 101 week. The week after that, leading up to that, I'm going to actually make some Pirate 101 videos, Pirate 101 guides and stuff. So if you're interested in those, let me know. If not, that's fine. You can skip them. And then on the 24th, I will be streaming that week on Pirate 101. So my plan is to kind of like, you know, make a Pirate 101 week before the Pirate 101 week, getting people prepared for Pirate 101, then I'll play it. So that's kind of my little announcement there. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day. Thank you all for watching.